Welcome to episode 6. We made some changes to our ore processing. So first we'll go in the back here. So this is 18 tall as it was before. I didn't show it. I switched to electric pumps. One row wasn't enough, so I just made a bunch more pumps and increased it. And at some point that was enough. You have the enhanced pressure tubes here because they were cheap to build. So now, and I run the power down in between the two. A little tricky to get them all in there, but you basically, the ones on the far wall are easy to install and the ones here you sort of have to do from the side. And so now I'm feeding the water now. Oh, you seem to have an extra pipe here, I think. Is that really an extra pipe? Do we know if that's an extra pipe? Well, we'll figure it out in a second. So you can see the power underneath. We'll go down and check that out in a bit. The water goes up above. Most of the water goes directly into here, which, as you can see, I'm running completely full of brine, completely full of water, temperature's max. I moved the heat generation to behind it because I wanted a little more space. And actually I just stuck 2 of them in there just because. And I wasn't too worried, so I didn't even worry about getting them covered on all sides. They're visible because they're behind the glass. The lava is invisible, so we can actually see them. If we break the glass, we see lava covering them on the side. So I'm running water over there, then down this way, and to avoid too many connections, I come down here before I cross back to there. And so there's like 5 locations that need water in the whole process. We'll go through some of the setup that I have set up, and so I get brine coming in 2 spots. So over here gets brine dumping this excess sodium. Don't know what else to do with it right now. Probably could just wipe it out completely, but this way I can see where it is. Chlorine comes out one side. I got some pressure pipes here instead of tanks. I did tanks last time, but here I did pipes. That feeds into a chemical infuser, which is fed power from the left side and is receiving that's hydrogen, excuse me, that's hydrogen. I'm stealing the hydrogen from a process down here I'll show in a moment. So I had to route some hydrogen over here, and the chlorine comes on that side, and then so we have the only thing I'm putting from here is chlorine from the side here. There's no direct connection. So we got hydrogen from the left, chlorine from the right. We're out putting hydrogen chloride there, the power course underneath. Then here is a chemical injection chamber, and difficulty of going this high is one needs a fair amount of diamonds for this item. And so here's the chemical injection chamber, which takes the hydrogen chloride and this is where you would put in, I believe, your gunpowder. I think you put your gunpowder in here. There we go. So we put gunpowder in at this stage. I haven't automated that yet. So you can see that I'm processing the gunpowder with the hydrogen chloride, and I'm producing Mekanism sulfur dust. Well, it turns out there's a number of ways of producing mining. A lot of this I mined. If you run netherrack through a pulverizer, you can get sulfur and a lot of gravel. So that can speed up your process if you don't have the full setup. And then later on I'll show up how to automate production of gunpowder. And then in a moment here we'll see hopefully the sulfur should actually move, but maybe we didn't finish configuring. And yep, we didn't finish configuring. So we're going to switch this to output on that side. Input's going to be on that side eventually, if I'm not mistaken. Let's leave that there. Really, energy is below, so I don't think it's going to matter too much. So, and how about this guy here? Well, this one's a little trickier. We're still having some trouble figuring this out. The connections are a little complicated. So at the present time, I'm producing sulfur here, but I'm not processing it over yet. But this is where the sulfur goes. So I can take any of the sulfur I have, put it in here. And the trick is getting these things rotate the right direction. I was having some trouble with all these early machines here. And we'll see that Here you can see the sulfur is vanishing. Well, it's vanishing into the chemical infuser where I'm feeding in oxygen, and the sulfur here is becoming, I guess it's sulfur dioxide. Yeah. So sulfur oxide goes in here, mixed with oxygen, produces sulfur trioxide, I believe. And the question is, okay, so where do we got all this? So we have to produce oxygen, so we're producing oxygen in here. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm one off on what I'm producing. Let's go back to here then. So here is our water, which feeds in over the top. This is a rotary condenser. We're feeding out water vapor. You got to get rotated correctly. The tube for the water will only connect to one of the two sides. So you can rotate it with a wrench on top. Here, see the water vapor is going into here, mixing with sulfur trioxide to produce sulfuric acid. So the output of this is, I believe, is what I actually said, sulfur trioxide. We just can't see it long enough because I haven't filled up. That'll be easier once I get this completely backstopped. But I think I ran some ores through here as a test. So we get sulfur trioxide, the water vapor obviously, and then the sulfuric acid. The trick, of course, is getting these rotated right so that it then feeds into these machines. Really, you should build this from right to left, but I built from left to right, so now these machines had to be rotated. These in particular. So you got the sulfuric acid, and if I put any ore in there, it'll process through. So let's see if we can find one piece of ore to go in the process. Oh, let's do one piece of tin. Let's first clean out the final. Apparently we're doing osmium last. Been testing this. So if we go ahead and we'll stick one tin in here, then begin the process. And you can see it vanished immediately into the next one. And all three of these had to be rotated because they're backwards. And so there's the tin slurry, which is being processed. And it's going to come out here, probably faster than we can see. Hard to say. Oh, it's already in here, so it's only going to process a little bit at a time. So there, it's processing it. So we go from the chemical infuser to produce sulfuric acid to the chemical dissolution chamber. We put the ore in there to produce the slurry, which goes in the chemical washer, which takes in water. Again, that's why we have all the water pipes over here. In the end, I decided it was easier just to have one source for all the water and just make it super over duty. And okay, that's chemical washer. It's waiting. So we're processing the tin slurry here, chemical crystallizer. So that is producing tin crystals. So before, when we were doing, I believe that's ore quadrupling, I believe goes to here. And that's where you see we were also producing hydrogen chloride in this system back here. And over here, where we need oxygen. Also, we're dumping the excess of either one of the oxygen or hydrogen, because it's always hard to say which one's around. So, and the hydrogen had to come out this side, oxygen fed into that side, and so let's see if we go ahead and stick more. Let's use up what I have. More sulfur. So our only problem now is figuring out why this sulfur does not go to here. Other than the fact that I got stuff in there right now, it's hard to say. It does look like it's facing the right direction. We're going to have to see. That's going to require more testing, I guess. Because I clearly did not. The output is not quite clear. One would think that would be the input. Because this is obviously outputting to that side here. Unless this needs to be rotated. Who knows? Let's go ahead and give it a try. So go ahead and take the wrench, press the wrench, and it's important to hit on the top. So here we'll rotate. You can see the two inputs, or two things. And now we flip this. Oop. And for a little while we had a connection to a gas. Now why would we be putting a gas in here? Well, let's see, where's it going? So the sulfur dioxide is building up in here, as you can see. So it's no longer going over here to be processed. The sulfur dust here is not, we probably missed this. No, we don't want strict. probably forgot to click. Ah, there it is. We forgot to click that. So now we're going to go ahead and rotate this back the way it was. And okay, so we see that all have been pushed over to here. And you can see a little bit of sulfur dioxide there. Combine with the oxygen will give us our sulfur trioxide. And then here, we'll see that now we are pushing our sulfur dust. And I can't put those in there. So I have a fair amount of sulfur. I'm just going to use it up. I'm going to use my gunpowder in here, and then I'll, later, at the next stage, we'll automate the production of the gunpowder. So it's very careful. You have to get all the settings correct. Test them one at a time. Probably should build from the salination plant out, but I built like this because I just sort of used to building from left to right. I always wanted to start with a little bit. You need some ore production in order to build later machinery. Almost should build a digiminer before you build some of these, because I believe must be this one here. Chemical injection chamber required a fair number of diamonds. So let's see, we got a chemical washer. So we're done processing. All this stuff has gone all the way through. Last we saw there was a tin thingy in there. So here we were dumping the excess hydrogen, but the hydrogen we're also filling into over to here. We're putting hydrogen and chlorine again to make the hydrogen chloride to fit into here for ore quadrupling. The only reason you do ore quintupling, particularly on the APOC and Upgrades Tekken RPG server, is just to do it because you're not going to be short of ores. So if we go over here, and also I use the here it is. I used a configurator like before, so I didn't have to have the plates separating things. So sometimes I put them in while I was doing assembly just to make sure. So I kept the chlorine tanks here. It's sort of nice in terms of while you're reconfiguring things, you can see what you're doing. So there I'm dumping. I actually could just switch that to dump access. That's a little clearer how things are working. Otherwise it's like you can't see what's in that particular spot. So of course the chemical infusion like before. You can see I'm just completely full now. So I haven't been processing much ore. It's relatively slow, but it's not very, I don't have a high need for additional ores. And so there we got our hydrogen, which feeds that one. Ideally, one could set up a bank of hydrogen and oxygen and chlorine production and just feed the pipes to where they need. I did it as needed, sort of getting the machines as close together as possible. Partially to minimize the number of pipes, but also because it's very hard to visualize how to build a bank in an efficient manner. So we can see already I've already pushed all the way through, probably to the end. So you can see I took one piece in and I got 4 or 5 tin out. So I just keep dumping them in this chest. I had to make a bigger chest. I set up a hardened machinist workbench with all the different things I would need. So fortunately I was able to get a fair number of diamonds on this server. So here, this was one of the critical items, reinforced alloy. And you can see it requires compressed diamond or diamond dust. Basically a pulverizer is what you need than a rich alloy. That's just one of the more expensive components of the chemical injection chamber. So hopefully you can follow this to build an identical unit. Try to keep, the biggest problem one has is either not setting the output direction, not setting it to auto input or eject, or having these rotated always. So you can see over here, these are, well, you can't see them all, but at least some of them you can see that the faces change. So let's just go ahead and rotate this, rotate. So there you can see the input outputs, but really very hard to tell. All depends how you set it down. This one here is probably a little trickier to rotate. So you look at it that way, well, there's little thingies there, but we need little thingies over there. And now that I messed with it, we should run something through. Oh, copper is always useful. So if we go to where do we put it in? So already we can see that we've been processing. So that's where the gunpowder goes. Sulfur goes in here. Let's use the rest of my sulfur. And then over here, I'll just put this in again. So I put the copper in. And boom, it's all over here. And now it's being processed. And let's see, did I break it? That's a good question. It's hanging around waiting, so it must be, yep, so just a little tiny bit in there. So it actually cannot fill this up for some strange reason. I haven't started dealing with upgrades yet. That'll be a later step. See how fast we can go. So then hydrogen chloride, this is at your 4x. Normally this would be your 4x. You really wouldn't have to build any of the other stuff. So 4x is still pretty cheap in terms of equipment, so 4x. 5x is really much later when you have excess diamonds. But it's not obvious until you get halfway through this you need diamonds. But if you have sulfur, let's see, can we, yeah, so the most expensive machine is the chemical injection chamber. So that's just to produce sulfur. So if you have sulfur or produce sulfur just by mining a lot of netherrack and run it into a pulverizer, you could actually get away with that and get 5x earlier on. So there we are processing another one. The shards going into there. It's also important to know where these are because you probably need a clump or something to make certain mechanism items. So you have to figure out how to grab those out of there. And the dust you can just get by reprocessing. So that's it for the moment. I'll set up the automatic production of gunpowder to thereby produce sulfur in a bit. I'm just going to start tossing in. This is my chest that processed a bunch of netherrack. You can see again a ton of gravel, and there is my thermal foundation sulfur, which is where I got that from. And then this is what I mined out of the ground. Sort of fun mining, finding things. This server has a lot of different ores in the ground, because it has metallurgy 4, which gives you a lot of stuff to do with Tinker's Construct, gives you a few extra resources for Mekanism. You can also produce brine using, instead of using thermal evaporation controller, you can also use it using salt. So there's a Mekanism salt, which you can then turn into brine. It's not very efficient, so if you have enough copper, it's worthwhile to go this route. Otherwise, you just go ore tripling until you can set up something like this and just keep building it up. You don't have to build a big one right away. And you certainly don't need as many water pumps as I had. If you're not doing much processing, you can get by with a couple water pumps or one even. I just kept on adding just for symmetry, and then I had the pumps and I didn't know what else to do with them, so I stuck them there. And it was one or two of the machines require some pumps, so you can actually use up your extra pumps that way. I had no idea how many pumps I need, so I just filled it to max. And at this point, I never processed enough yet, but that could change as soon as I start doing energy upgrades to all these machines and processing upgrades. And we'll see which machines slow us down, and then there's more enhancements in Mekanism if we want to really process. But at some point, we're going to move on to a different mod in this pack, and then do some more interesting items and more rapid. It takes a fair amount of time to design up these ore processing. It's not so much knowing which machines you need, it's getting them organized so you don't loop back on top of yourself. It was okay up to here, but then you start getting over to here, and you have to turn a corner, and this machine is like adjacent to this machine, but those two are not supposed to be connected. This is connected there, and then it's which way do you run the machines? Here I ran hydrogen in this side because I knew I had hydrogen over here, but also, and I ran a saline solution there, but I could run it in the back, but since I'm just dumping the sodium, I don't have to worry about it. But I could pump the chlorine out this side and pump the hydrogen this side and put a electrolytic separator on this side and have a totally separate source of hydrogen. Ideally, you would come up with a way to run the excess hydrogen to a gas burner. However, then it's a little hard to balance, so they always have enough hydrogen for the system. You have to be careful how you cascade them. And so I just chose to, sadly enough, dump the excess hydrogen here. Maybe there's another way that would make sense. Put a gas burner down below. And the same here. I want to make sure I get enough in. If I ran this up and then I could sneak off, try to get it so it feeds first into here. That'd be an interesting challenge. All this is about the challenge. All right, that's it for until I get the next stage built.